Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 1:30. There's no grand introduction. No one's coming out to bring me, or there's no fireworks. Nobody brought no fireworks. But thank you guys for having this discussion with me. My name is David White. I'm the program manager for the DISA Adobe JELA, as well as for the Palo Alto JELA and the Cisco JELA and the Broadcom JELA that we have out of DISA representing the DoD. So the JELA lately, if you've been paying attention, we've been getting some press about what we're doing, and we're trying to do some things ultimately to bring the capabilities to the warfighters, streamline that capabilities, as well as save the taxpayer money. So today in the agenda, we're going to go over the purpose. We're going to go over our vision as the JELA and how it pertains to our priorities, particularly enhancing readiness. We're going to talk about the JELA value proposition. And also we invited some of our industry partners, Palo Alto, and we're going to learn how Palo Alto is supporting the warfighters, as well as the future of the JELA and how Cisco is supporting the warfighters under our contract with Iron Bow. And because we are at an Army event, we're going to talk about Army's Adobe footprint when it comes to the procurement side. And we're going to go over the cool thing. We're going to go over some use cases so you can see the type of capabilities that are offered on this agreement. So you could go back and you could talk to your funding folks and say, hey, we need to get this stuff going. I mean, but let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So the purpose of the JELA is, it is not just to get the best tax dollars and not get the best cost savings, but also streamlining the capabilities to the DoD. So part of our offering that we do in this program management office is we help create a vehicle that can support the future needs of Army, the future needs of Air Force, the future needs of the DoD. And we try to do it in a cost-effective way, leveraging our contracting officer and contracting office in Dicko Scott. So our vision is more advanced in the sense that, hey, let's start kind of working with industry and understanding how can we strategically align with the offerings that you guys are seeing across your platform. Being in a decentralized state, the contracting doesn't always have the overview to see who's purchasing where, what the needs are happening in this field, where the needs are happening in this command. But under the JELA, we're now bringing one voice, and we're able to have a more of a strategic plan moving forward when it comes to sustaining the best costs as well as the most capabilities under this agreement. So our vision for the JELA is to continue to be, brokering these deals, as well as marketing the JELAs and having strategic conversations with our mission partners, Army, Air Force, Navy, the DAFAs, to make sure that what we are putting to our agreement satisfies everyone's needs. So enhancing readiness. So, there was an article that was released by someone that I know, I'm not going to name drop myself, but it was released recently, and it's particularly centered around the user experience, right? Many times contracts are set up and we're not considering the user experience with that capability. The JELA's purpose is to understand and to be able to put up metrics, KPIs, to how does this enhance the user experience with that capability. So being able to have one-on-one conversations in the pre-award conversation, in the pre-award process to figure out, how can we monitor and how can we be effective, and making sure that we have training involved, as well as when it comes to enhancing readiness. These are some of the benefits when we talk about reducing errors, and because if you have a new capability and the training's not available for that staff member or for that warfighter, it creates issues. It creates also the morale. It can impact the morale with that capability. So under these JELAs, we don't just, hey, do the procurement, here you go, run with it. No, now we have an ecosystem, and we have the supporting plan. How can we implement that into your environment? How can we move forward to make sure that everyone in your program is properly trained with that capability? So, and that goes into the value of the proposition of the JELA. So many times when we talk about technical support, product support, things of that nature, and you don't always get to the right end user. You don't always get to the right industry person to help you with that problem. Under this large agreement, now we're kind of monitoring the performance as one DoD. So therefore, we do motivate industry, we do motivate the resellers to perform at a certain level, because now you're representing the whole DoD. So we're providing top level industry experts. That's part of the design of the product. That's part of the design of the capability, and we're giving them access to our mission partners under this JELA. Okay, go back. Let me go over. So then another thing about having a joint enterprise licensing agreement is being able to pivot all at once. So we have new administration, we have new priorities. It's easier to pivot under one agreement than have to go and modify multiple agreements to make sure that you align with the SECDEF initiatives, with the new administration initiatives. So being able to secure the best pricing, we know that was put out in a memo. How do we do that? So we do that under one umbrella, under the JELA. Our program handles, from a contracting standpoint, all the streamlining to make it easier for our mission partners. So under our agreements, we're doing the IGC, the market research, all the JNA, everything that costs towards labor hours and relieving that burden from DFAS, that burden from Army, that burden from Air Force, and we're able to streamline that acquisition process for them. Then the main thing, fostering the strong industry relationship support. Collaboration is huge. And my background is in contracting, and we're familiar with RFIs. So when we do our RFIs, the purpose of RFIs is saying, hey, government, we don't understand exactly what to ask for. We don't understand exactly what the solution is going to all entail. So we need that interaction with you. We need that hand-holding sometimes for certain capabilities. We need that assistance throughout the acquisition process, not just award and leave me alone, but award and let's maintain that relationship to make sure I'm getting full optimization under that contract. So the fostering the relationship of industry relationships and having unified PMRs, like I said, once again, one voice and the PMRs to make sure that we are all aligned together and fighting with the joint tools. So I don't know, did my Palo Alto, is Jason here? So we had so my Palo Alto rep, he might be stuck downstairs as well. But from Palo Alto, DISA, we utilize that in our Thunderdome program. So when we talk about security, we talk about fast reliability, we're talking about connecting. That's our strong partners. We're currently growing this agreement. We have a Space Force on this agreement, as well as trying to recruit a few other, and we love to have Army under this agreement that we have from a DoD-wide perspective. So then the future of the JELA, one of the things that we're doing differently is we're trying to involve our chief experience officer across the DoDs, the different officers, to make sure that the user experience voice is heard, to make sure that the ecosystem is set up, and make sure that we are tracking the satisfaction of the users. How long are they spending with the product? How long are there any troubleshooting that needs to happen? And making sure that we're aligning the business goals on the pre-award side. IT governance, that we're communicating with the DoD CIO office a lot. We know that duplication of contracts, we're trying to review that as a whole, as a DoD, figuring out what's going to be some ESI agreements, what GWAC agreements, what things are going to come out in terms of the joint enterprise licensing agreement. So we're establishing that framework, what's going to be on GSA, all that things. We're trying to find our lane. Performance management, we get that unified, like I said, once again, in the PMR. Then the future of the agreement is monitoring still user experience. Okay, so from Cisco, so we have a fourth state agreement that's open to all of DoD, and I do have Joel. Yeah, just talk about some of the benefits. How is Cisco, and I could give you the mic. How is Cisco in supporting the warfighting in terms of the capabilities?
Thanks, David.
Yep.
Just truth in lending, I'm an Ironbow employee and not a Cisco employee, but we're the prime on the fourth estate Cisco Software Enterprise Agreement, colloquially known as GEMS, right? So all the MILDEPs have one, but the fourth estate combines 17 DAPAs into one enterprise agreement. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. General Stanton will talk about how DISA is really supporting Warfighter, but every other agency head could come up here and say, Defense Logistics Agency, Defense Finance Accounting Service, you name it, right? They all will come up here and tell you how their mission is to support the warfighter. But in effect, each of them have a portion of our 4 EGEMs. And I will foot stomp because every MILDEP has their own. The differences are on our side of the house, underneath the JELA program office, is we are truly an enterprise agreement. We have, in addition to the base entitlements of Cisco provided DNA and SmartNet that all the military departments have, we truly are that EA, right? So it's flexible. We've got a bolted on IDIQ catalog that any of our contract members can avail themselves of. I've got Cisco software SKUs on there that they can order just under purchase order. I've got the ability to do advanced services for engineers, any additional projects that they need support on. It's a very flexible vehicle that gives organizations to punch above their weight. Very small agencies like DPAA and DTIC, right, are members of the agency, and they're getting everything that military service is getting, right? They have the ability to leverage all of those capabilities. So the beauty of the EA that is constructed is it's very flexible, and it allows every entity to have its own flavor of the software and services underneath Cisco that they need. So I appreciate the time for the mic here, sir, and hopefully that gives a little bit of flavor
that was
of the
good.
Cisco EA.
And one thing that you said that I kind of want to echo is the fact for the smaller agencies being able to leverage the capabilities, and the JELA allows for that because we're combining the buying power together. So there's some agreements that we have that there's unified pricing. So what Army's paying, the same thing that what DMA is paying, and it allows them to grow in the technology. So when we talk about the SECDEF initiatives in terms of modernization, under the JELA, we're able to modernize as one because the pricing is unified, and they're not taking, the smaller agencies not taking such a huge hit because they're only bringing a certain amount of quantity to the deal. So that's a very good point to that. So looking at the Army, so because we are at an Army event once again, so the cool thing, we have to give Army credit because the JELA actually was kind of created and initiated off of the Army in terms of their footprint that they had, particularly with the Adobe agreement. So this is kind of like the history of how the JELAs kind of started within the Army. In 2013, that's when it was initiated. In 2016, that's when it kind of shifted from perpetual license to subscription license. Then currently the Army, they're buying 800,000 Acrobat license, and this is just the footprint. They have unlimited AEM forms. We're going to talk about the capabilities of AEM forms in over 10,000 Creative Cloud application, all apps. And for those who do not know, you could get your Army procurement through the PL digital market. So this is the Army's footprint for those who just didn't know. What is Army doing in terms of the relationship with Adobe? How much Adobe is embedded into Army's mission. So when I look at this, I always say, it takes me back to chemistry class. Like I'm looking at, like I'm just looking for iron and looking for different. Okay, but this is actually the different product sets that are on this JELA agreement when it comes to Adobe. You're familiar, it's natural to be familiar with maybe the top ones, but then there's some other capabilities, right, to get familiar with. And part of the JELA is being able to market that and share some of those use cases across the DoD. So we have a few mission use cases when it comes to the Adobe footprint and the capabilities. I brought some friends with me to talk about it. John, and we brought Ken. Yeah, I got Ken. Yeah, John and Ken, they come in together, and we're going to kind of talk about some of these use cases. We're not going to go through all 10 of them, but I think we could go over the ones that are highlighted. So therefore, we'll be able to educate you guys, take it back to your departments, and see how it's being used across the DoD. So stand by. This is one of the videos when we talk about recruiting. We know recruiting is a big target when it comes to the DoD. Once these hiring freezes are lifted.
Recruiting the best talent is challenging in all industries, but is especially challenging in the Department of Defense. In this video, we will look at how Sarah Rose has gone from an unknown visitor to a new employee, and we will take time to also see what is happening behind the scenes to make this possible. An anonymous individual does a search for DoD cybersecurity jobs. Search results based on anonymous behavior and the most popular content is presented to the user. The search leads the anonymous individual to the career site where the user reviews the cybersecurity openings, then clicks on a cybersecurity job opening for details. From the job opening details page, this individual decides to navigate through the rest of the site to learn more about civilian careers in the DoD. But then our visitor's mind wanders and they begin browsing some travel websites since they do love to travel. Let's look at how easy it is to edit content and personalize your website using Adobe solutions. Content editors can quickly create and update content in Adobe Experience Manager through the drag and drop user interface. The team can also quickly create and test multiple user experiences and then analyze those to determine which experience drives the results that they are looking for. In this case, visitors to dive deeper into job details. The data analyst can do so much more with Adobe. Here, they can attribute impact to a specific activity that leads to enrollment and additional engagement. And they can review the end-to-end visitor journey across all channels. Then bring that together into a single visitor profile linked by a unique identifier. Our analyst is doing just that as Sarah moves through her journey from unknown to known recruit. So many other details are unknown right now, but we will see them populate as we continue through the journey. Based on the data we have now, Sarah is placed into a segment using lookalike modeling based off of her browsing. Let's jump back into Sarah's journey as she is now back online. When we last left Sarah, she was surfing travel websites. Our unknown visitor then gets serious and back to job hunting. This time, when they look at the DoD career site, they see a more personalized image based on their recent browsing activity. This visitor is interested in what they read and think that they may have this as a great career opportunity. They then take a deeper look at the job opportunities available. Here again, they receive more personalized content based on their earlier browsing of cybersecurity. The visitor clicks the job opening and this time initiates the application process. The user starts filling out the application and inputs her email, but gets distracted and does not complete the application. Let's look at the additional analytics collected about Sarah and put that to use in more personalized targeting. Our data analyst is learning more and more about Sarah. We now know her name and some basic attributes. This identity graph shows all data and connections known about Sarah so far. Based on everything we know about Sarah, including her dropping off after completing most of the form, she is placed into a segment which is then pushed a campaign to send her a personalized email. Personalized emails and messaging can be created and managed within Adobe for handling cross-channel communications, again, using a drag and drop interface to edit content. Automation and orchestration of communication and messaging can be quickly built, managed, and scheduled with Campaign's user-friendly workflow tool. These automated workflows are used now to regain Sarah's interest, but will be used again for scheduling interviews and finally for signing later in the journey. Analysts can also view reports on communications and messaging regarding sent, delivery, bounces, and more. Now, let's jump back into Sarah's journey as she receives a notification. Sarah receives an email to complete her job application so she can be considered for the role. From her mobile device, Sarah clicks the email and is taken back to her application with her form data already saved via the Forms portal. She completes the application and submits. Let's look more at online forms and the Forms portal. The job listings page here is simply an example of a forms portal. The forms portal makes it easy for individuals to search for and complete an online form on any device. They can also save a draft or a completed form to view later. Data collection is made more efficient while automating both user-centric and back-end processes with Adobe Forms. The data Sarah entered into this form is then saved in a draft form for her to complete later. Adaptive forms are easy to create and edit in the drag-and-drop user interface. Let's jump back to Sarah's journey a few days later. Sarah receives a personalized email from her assigned recruiter who begins the process with an introduction and then ends with a date and time for an in-person interview. Throughout the interview process, she receives timely updates and is in continuous communication, all tracked with Adobe Analytics. After an exciting and inspiring interview process, Sarah is offered the position. While out at dinner, Sarah receives her offer letter. She is so excited to review the details. After reviewing on her mobile device, she signs the offer. A back-end workflow automates the process of notifying internal functional areas to review and approve. Sarah then receives the final confirmation email containing the signed document and audit trail for her records. Now, you see how easy it is to give your unknown visitors a more personalized experience and therefore improve your recruiting in the digital age.
Yeah, what I like about that, because it seems like it's a modern way of recruiting, because the communication between the candidate and the recruiter is very important, and to have that, what's going on, knowing that status and be able to look at the real-time status. So joining me is Ken to kind of just talk a little bit about that capability.
Yeah, no, thanks. And I'll stand up too, so I'm not like hiding behind a podium. First of all, quick background on me. Ken Raimondi, solutions consultant with Adobe, 24 years with the Air Force, 13 of it active, 10 as a civilian. But I got to spend some time in recruiting. So we talked about Sarah's journey, which is great. You know, Sarah seems to be pretty well taken care of, but let's not forget about the recruiters. So I think about when I was recruiting, and I had Ken's Air Force Base at the time, which was Quincy, Massachusetts. How do I find those candidates? I just did whatever I could possibly come up with. If it was a tear out flyer, you know, I guarantee you I didn't have that Air Force logo right. Whether it was whatever marketing materials I can dream up. That's how I had to work. And that's fine for maybe 20 years ago, showing my age. But how do we do things today, right? How do we empower our recruiters today to be able to stay on brand, to stay relevant, but also they're the experts of their zone, right? They know their zone. They know who they need to communicate to. Give them some power to do that. But let's make sure they have some guidelines, right, to work to where they're not embarrassing our national brand, maybe using slogans that aren't approved, right, or fonts or funky colors that don't necessarily match what we're supposed to be using. And so now we are in that world, right? We can literally put in the hands of a recruiter an online tool or even a mobile app, right, where they're able to leverage templates and with those templates apply brands and use that same exact app to create material for social media, flyers. They can create presentations, right? All of this stuff while staying on brand. But then the question you got to ask yourself is, okay, well, we made this great material, right? We got it out in the world, but I'm going to bring John in here because the next question is, well, how do we know what's actually working? So I can tell you what I knew when I was a recruiter is I walked into the restaurant and I saw how many of the little tear-offs were done on the phone number, right? And if they're all torn off, it's like, oh, that must have worked. That's not exactly how we want to do things today. Not to say that that can't work. There's a place for it, right? But we also know the digital world is its own other world. And we need to be able to meet that customer where they are, right? That potential applicant. So my question to you, John, is how would we do that?
Yeah, so attracting the candidate to the website or to your application is definitely a major part of engaging people, right? But you need to be able to gather additional analytics on that content, and perhaps based upon all the curated content that's out there, maybe have a couple of different pieces of content so you can gauge which content is more popular for a particular type of recruit. So maybe today the recruiter they're looking for sharpshooters. So you want to create content that's going to attract gun enthusiasts to the website, and then once they get to the website, how do you engage them so that they follow the journey of becoming a sharpshooter? So Adobe has all the technologies that allow you to create the content, gather the analytics that you need and that the recruiter needs to ensure that his idea of attracting sharpshooters is meeting its mark. The content that he's created is relevant and doesn't get old over time. So there may be a time frame. I mean, tell me, Ken, would there be a time frame that you're looking for a recruit?
I mean, I think what is
for a sharpshooter, or you're looking for infantry guys?
I would say what's important is just having that real-time feedback, right? To know, like, okay, this product I created is actually doing really well out there, but this other one or two that I made is not at all working, right? So basically, instead of like hoping that this thing is still going to gain some traction, literally being able to pivot in real time. And so that kind of leads me to, how do we do that, right? How do we then create new material? Because Ken the recruiter, right, isn't Ken the video production specialist, even though I had a career doing that as well. So there's a couple of different tools if you want to bring that up. We can talk about that. So if it's a matter of just making a small adjustment on the fly, like let's say we have 4 or 5 different social media posts we put out there and we're seeing 2 of them, the language is working way better than the other 3. Well, now I can start to adjust those other ones to try to match that language to something a little more successful, right? So we can make that time change quickly. And then also knowing that Ken's probably not going to just make these changes on his own, I'm going to need some sort of collaboration, hopefully from my peers. Hey, what do you think about this, right? Maybe people who've been in the business a little bit longer than me. Oh, you like this? Awesome. Now let's get our commander's approval, right? Or whoever up the chain that we need to get that approval from. So now we have things at our fingertips where it's not like I used to have to do, download it, upload a DoD safe, send the email, somebody brings a laptop to Colonel so-and-so's office, opens it up, plays the video, they leave feedback over Teams, text, and email, and I have to put that together and make edits, right? That does not work. It would be a lot better if they can just access that file via their phone, wherever they are, right? Be able to give me that real-time feedback, whether it's on a web-based platform or even my video editor, and I can see that feedback and make those changes, right? Because we don't have time to wait for weeks, right? If we're trying to especially hit like a hot button topic or something that's going on in your community, I don't have weeks to get that data back and to make those changes. We got hours and days if we're lucky, right? So that's the next thing I kind of wanted to focus on is that's great, right? Ken, the recruiter, knows his zone, was able to leverage brands, right? And was able to create content that was compelling, but found a few pieces of that content was less compelling than he hoped, was able to make those adjustments, still staying on brand, getting those approvals, collaborating with my teammates, right? And now everything I've created is actually reaching the intended person I want to reach, which is awesome. But then we got to ask ourselves the next question, John. So they come to the office. What's that experience like, right? Are they going to come to the office and fill out a form that you just filled out online and just have this repetitive thing? So what do we do to make the experience that maybe they felt online feel just as personal, as important as when they walk into the office?
Okay, let me ask you this question, because what I'm saying, when we think about the JELA, right, and we think about the enterprise license agreement. So for this agreement, we have over 1.6 million users on this agreement. So if there's a use case, and there's even for the recruiting, we take that as an example. If DLA or someone wanted to implement the experience manager, how easy it is to duplicate that for another mission partner. Right. I think that's part of some of the benefits of the JELA is being able to share some of those use cases across. And actually, it makes it easier where the creating the need doesn't have to be from scratch. It could be, hey, shared. Hey, this is what Navy's doing. We can actually put that in your environment. This is what DHA is doing. Some of that uniformity, because we do want that experience to be duplicated across the board. And I know, so when we think about the Adobe JELA, so we have Acrobat Pro. Everyone in here is probably familiar with Acrobat Pro if you're signing anything. But then we also have the forms. So forms is a big part of our agreement, but also forms is a big part of the DoD mission. So can we talk a little bit about the forms as well?
Yeah, sure. So as Ken said, right, once you have the candidate in the office, it might be nice if he did a search to find out that he actually did come to your website and he did follow a journey and he did start out filling the form. And so having that experience that Ken knows who he is before he actually arrived and maybe came into the office to get additional information, and the recruiter is there ensuring that, oh, you're David White and you want to be a sharpshooter. Well, with AEM forms, as David has said, which is part of the JELA contract, you have the ability, business basically gets done in the DoD and especially the Army through AEM forms. But that's not to say there's not additional challenges, right? So typically, the typical scenario today is, you find the form, you download it, you fill it out, you digitally sign it, you save it, and submit it through emails. So you send it through email, it's easy to lose track of, which causes delays in the process. But then once the process has been completed, that form is typically downloaded into a shared drive where, and the shared drive is more often than not is SharePoint. And SharePoint doesn't give you access to that information that is stored on that form. So AEM Forms gives you the ability to complete life cycle of forms management, updating the recruiter when the recruiter needs to be updated, automatically, being able to find the form, fill it out. If you're using CAC credentials, being able to pull the CAC credentials right from the CAC card, pre-filling it so, that, not just the recruit, but the enlisted and the officers are able to, easily fill out forms, making forms much easier to fill out, much easier to submit, following a workflow that's completely trackable, gathering additional analytics, finding out where the forms are potentially, being dropped, where their forms aren't being completed somewhere through the process because of confusion. It's gathering all that information, not just about the recruit's journey, but wherever the form may be and wherever that form journey leads throughout its workflow process. So we're constantly gathering and tracking information, how engaged are these individuals using these forms. So we have a much more intuitive, compliant, modern form experience, reduced manual effort, converting data into actionable insight, and reducing errors and backlogs.
Right. And so that's good. And this helps support the readiness and, like I said, the modernization effort across the DoD. One thing that I did want to mention as we're, about to wrap things up is, this is a large agreement. Our JELA agreement is a large agreement. It has to support, we set it up to support the entire DoD, whether they're migrating on next fiscal year or the year after. But the JELA agreements could not be done without the support of not just the OEM, but the resellers as well. We know with Cisco, Iron Bolt, they play a huge part. Carousel, they play a huge part in what we're doing on our JELAs. They support the Palo Alto JELA that we have. They support the Broadcom JELA that we just awarded 2 weeks ago. And they provide support as the distributing party for the Adobe JELA. Then Dell, we know Dell, they have one of the great signs in the next building, and they are a prime reseller on the Adobe JELA. So we want to make sure if there's things that you guys saw on this presentation, as well as, because we only went through a few use cases, Carousel, they have a table out there, particularly for some of the Adobe use cases that you can take a look at and go through it. Zero Trust is a huge thing that we know that's prominent across the DoD, but there's 10 different use cases that we definitely would like to go through. But we're asking you guys to take advantage. So take advantage of what's available. Take advantage of not of just the JELA services as well. And also the collaboration. We love, as the JELA PMO, we love collaborating not just with industry, but from our mission partners, the end users. We want to know, how can we make the agreement better year after year? So any conversation that we can have with industry partners, that would be greatly appreciated. But like I said, it takes a whole team, from the resellers to the OEM, down to the customer, to understand, to make sure that we're delivering the right product at the right time to the right people. So take advantage. And so then another thing that, before we wrap it up, I think there was one more point. This is our contact information, but also this presentation was completed in Adobe Express, right? So we did it in Adobe Express, and that's you probably see no different from its competitors, but you can also see additional capabilities in Adobe Express. Then we just converted it over to the PDF form, so that we want to make sure that we make note of that. Then there's a QR code. Tell us about the QR code.
No problem. So this QR code will actually take you to a post-event webpage, also created by Express. It's not showing up on there, John.
Oh.
We might have to go to bring that over to that desktop.
Yeah.
He'll bring up that QR code in a minute. When he does, you can scan it, but it'll take you to a post-event slide website, actually, that'll offer the videos, including other use case videos, and tons of links to like the JELA newsletter, which is brought out, I'm going to say monthly.
Quarterly?
Every other month?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was looking at. I was like, I knew you knew. So it's every other month, but jam-packed with information about what's going on with the software that you have access to. Because we all know this stuff's changing all the time. I find it hard to keep up with, and I work for Adobe, so I know how hard it is on the user side. And that's a lot of material available for you at that QR code if you want to scan it for a post-event.
Yeah, and I want to thank you, Joel, from Iron Bow. I want to thank Ken, and I want to thank John from Adobe. Even thank our reseller, Dell and Carousel as well for all the support they do for the JELA program. We have a JELA booth over there under the DISA, and we're happy to have conversations about that. There's many of the different OEMs, like how do you become a JELA? We can talk through that process, and we talk about additional value to having a JELA. So thank you so much. Was there anything else? I think we're good on time. And
Yeah, there was one use.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
One additional things, David, that we did not mention. I did want to talk about very briefly. This slide here, where we have a Navy Personnel Command.
Oh yes, yeah. Cause I was wondering, what DoD users and organization is using the forms, and that, because that's one thing that we have to do. We have to get more implementation and adoption with the forms under this agreement because it's already available.
Yeah, so Navy Personnel Command.
Okay.
They do deal with recruiting as well as other parts of HR. They've been using AEM forms for more than 10 years.
Wow.
Right. And so they use AEM forms they used 10 years ago, AEM forms to transition from paper forms to fillable interactive PDF forms, right? As well as adaptive HTML forms. So whether you're on a desktop or a mobile device, you have the ability to fill out these forms. Pre-fill capabilities they use pre-fill capabilities based upon personal identified information using personal credentials. Everything is 508 compliant, mobile friendly, and web-based, intuitive. Forms workflows are automated sent directly to the individuals they need to be sent to, updating back-end systems. And the impact of that is thousands of forms are being processed weekly now, with fewer errors, less effort, and improved communications because of automatic notice generation.
Yeah, that's good. And the reason I was laughing because I was a civilian working at the Navy less than 10 years ago, and yes, we were still doing hard copy leave. But so that's good. So once again, the QR code is available. We're over there, the JELA team, to talk a little bit more about whatever interest that you have in terms of enterprise-wide agreements. Once again, thank you to everyone for your support. We'll be having another conversation about this tomorrow. We have 2 sessions tomorrow at 10:30 and I believe at 2 p.m. tomorrow. Right, so feel free to come by if you have any questions. And there's some use cases available. Palo Alto, they have a booth, as well as Carousel has a booth showing some of these use cases, and we know that Iron Bow has a booth as well. Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you guys.